Now, as you guys may or may not know, one of my favourite Redstone challenges is to come up with displays. Some of my earliest Redstone projects were to create 7-segment displays, and I'm always trying my best to come up with new ways to display information using Redstone. But there has always been one project that I have always wanted to build but never been able to do. Now, the idea was simple. It was going to work a little bit like a 7-segment display. So this thing right here is your traditional 7-segment display. It's got a piston feed tape out the back, and right now it is cycling round through all of the numbers. It was going to work a little bit like that, but instead of having a piston feed tape, it was going to have a button panel underneath it, and you would hit a button inside that panel, and that would decide what number is displayed in the display. Now, this seems really simple, but there are a number of things that I wanted to have with this one. I wanted there to be outputs coming out the side so that you could run the outputs off into various different circuits, and I also wanted it to be very slim, very compact, and relatively fast. I tried this so many times in the early days of my YouTube channel, and I never quite managed it. But the other day I was looking back through an old Redstone book, I saw the challenge written down, and I thought to myself, I've got to give that thing another go. And here it is. This is the system itself. Now, as you can see, I have managed to make it incredibly slim. It is only 5 blocks wide, and if we hit one of these buttons right here, you can see that the number that I've pressed comes up on the screen. I mean, it happens relatively quickly. We've got ourselves a 2. If we hit this button right here, we should get ourselves a 7. If we hit this button, bottom right hand corner, we should get ourselves a 9. If we hit this button, we'll get ourselves a 1. And if we hit the button down at the bottom, we will get ourselves a 0. What I'm trying to prove here is that there's no order required. There's not like a piston feed tape that is cycling around out the back looking for these numbers. It is all done using Redstone logic, which I'm very proud of. Now, as I mentioned at the start, I had a set of requirements that I had to have for this build right here. The 3 obvious ones were that it was compact, it was fast, and it was relatively slim, and I feel like I've done a pretty good job on all of those. I mean, as you can see, it was fast when we were using it. It's decently compact. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like a pocket-sized Redstone contraption. There's plenty of Redstone right here, and you're not going to be slotting it into the tiniest of builds, but there's not too much airspace, and I've done my best to keep everything nice and tight-knit so that the Redstone isn't sprawling out everywhere, and most importantly, it is only 5 blocks wide, which I would say definitely defines itself as being fairly slim. But the other requirement that I had for the Redstone contraption was that it had a useful output. So I didn't want this thing to just be pretty, okay? It's all well and good having a number pad down at the bottom right here, you hit one of the numbers on it, and you get a display coming up saying, you just pressed number 7. That's cool, it is really cool, but it's not useful in the slightest. What I wanted was a system where I hit button number 7 is displayed, and then output number 7 is outputted out the side, so then I can run that out into different things. Now, this is useful for a lot of stuff, but say for example you had some form of minecart station, and you had a bunch of different locations that you wanted to go to, and you wanted to create a system where you can select the location that you're going to be traveling off to. So I hit button number 3, number 3 will be displayed on the screen so I can clearly see where I'm going to be heading off to, but then also output number 3 will run out and it will change up the minecart track, and then when I hop in the minecart, I will travel off to location number 3. But then if I want to change it, I can go off to location number 9. It will display number 9 on the display so I can clearly see where I'm going, but also number 9 will be selected in this area right here, and that will change up the minecart rails, meaning that I go off to location number 9. So now that we understand what this does, and we understand what it's useful for, I guess it's best that we start understanding how it actually works. Now, before you click off the video, because I know I felt some of you doing that, I'd highly suggest watching this, because this has got a ton of different interesting circuits on the inside, and you might learn a thing or two about how Redstone actually functions. So I guess the first thing that we should start with is the inputs. This is the button panel, and the interesting thing about this button panel right here is that, as you might just about be able to see, all of the buttons run into the same Redstone line. So it's just one Redstone line that snakes its way around, and all of the buttons are connected directly into it. Now, I know what you're thinking, okay, how on earth do you get different outputs from this button panel if they all run into the same Redstone line? Look, if you look at this Redstone circuit right here, that's the output of the Redstone line. If we hit this button right here, we get the output through the Redstone line, and we hit this button down at the bottom, we get an output through it. But for those of you who are like Hawkeye, you may notice that there's something slightly different about that Redstone output, and that is the signal strength. this gives a relatively weak signal strength, whereas this one gives a very strong signal strength. And we're going to make use of that. Now, to make things a little bit clearer, I've swapped out all of our buttons for levers so that we get constant outputs, and I've also removed all of the junk from up on the top because this, to be honest, is where most of the redstone magic is actually happening. Now, the interesting thing about this input panel right here is that this has got the starting signal strength. Okay, this is the starting signal strength, and then every number that you add on to that, so this is number 1, every number that you add on to that has got 1 extra signal strength. So number 2 is the starting signal strength with 1 added, and number 3 is an extra 1 on top of that, number 4 is an extra 1 on top of that, and so on and so forth, going through all of the numbers. And this was actually quite complicated to wire up because you have to run the redstone out across like that, and then you have to take it back around and make sure that it snakes back across, and it involved a ton of comparators and a ton of kind of wiggling about because you don't want to mess with the signal strength. But if we flick this first lever right here, you can see that this piece of redstone gets activated, only this 1 bit, and that's partly thanks to this comparator subtractor. And then if we hit number 2, you can see that these 2 pieces of redstone get activated. And if we hit number 3, you can see that yes, this signal strength is actually going on, and if you look out the back, you can see that each torch is being activated. Now, this green circuit right here is honestly one of the smartest and probably one of the most useful circuits in Minecraft. It's known as a redcoder, and what it does is it decodes the redstone signal. So what that means is that we can get individual outputs for different signal strengths. So right now we've got a signal strength of 3 and it's lighting up the 3rd redstone torch, but if we give in a signal strength of, say for example, 6, it will take that signal strength of 6, it will turn off all of these redstone torches and all of these redstone torches, and it will only give an output on the 6th redstone torch, which is incredible for systems like this, and that circuit right there is the only reason why I was able to build this thing. But unfortunately, the headaches don't stop there. Because we're using buttons instead of levers, if we hit one of these buttons inside the selector panel, it will flash up the redstone torch, but then of course that redstone torch will turn off, which means that if we hook that up into our 7-segment display, the number would pop up on the screen and then disappear, which isn't particularly useful, and it certainly doesn't look particularly very cool. So what we had to do is create an RS Snorlatch array or a button selector panel. Now, I've got a simplified version of one of these over here so that I can explain how it works. Basically, we have a bunch of buttons, and if we hit one of these buttons, it will turn off all of the latches by activating this redstone up at the top right here. So whatever button you press, it will activate that redstone line, which will turn off all of the latches at the start of the pulse. But then at the end of the pulse, it will then activate the latch that you have just pressed. So if we hit this button right here, you can see that the redstone turns off the latch up at the top, but then at the end of that pulse, only that redstone torch will turn back on, activating this dropper right here, which will send the item up, meaning this is the only one that gets itself a comparator output. So we hit this button, you can see that all of the redstone gets turned off, but then our redstone torch turns back on, activating the dropper, and then this comparator gets activated, and that comparator output runs up into our decoder, which takes that redstone signal and actually displays it on the 7-segment display. We're almost there. I can promise you the decoder, despite its fairly scary sounding name, is actually one of the simplest bits. So what we've got is we've got 2 different redstone torch towers running up like this, going through the center, and then we have got 7 different blue redstone lines. You can see 6 there, and then 1 up at the top. These 7 different lines go into the 7 different segments of our 7-segment display. So right now, we're displaying the number 3. Number 3 is being displayed out the front, and to display that, we need the top, we need the right hand, we need the middle, we need the right hand bottom, and then we need the bottom as well. And the ones that we don't want are the 2 left hand ones. So what we do is the ones that we don't want, we have our different redstone lines running across like this. On the ones that we don't want, we just place in a repeater, which means that our independent redstone torch tower, which is being powered here in the 3rd position, it just doesn't power these redstone lines. So we've got a repeater right here, that's cutting off that redstone signal, meaning this segment doesn't get powered. We also have a repeater right here, which is cutting off that redstone signal, which means that this side doesn't get powered again. But in all the other ones, we have got redstone lines. So for example, up here, we've got a redstone torch, which is powering that redstone line. We've got a redstone torch, which is powering this redstone line, which is our right hand one. We have got a redstone torch, which is powering the top section, the bottom section, the middle section, and everything like that. All of those are being powered apart from the ones that have repeaters. So essentially we're using repeaters to block off this signal trying to get into the redstone lines, which is powering each one of our segments. I hope that makes sense. Now I have to say, I really enjoyed this Redstone challenge, and it's given me a bunch of different ideas for future Redstone videos that I'm going to be doing. Hopefully you see those over the next couple of weeks, but one big thing that I really want to work on is a multi 7-segment display version of one of these. So say for example, I hit a 3 and a 4, it will first display the 3, and then it will shift the 3 across, and it will display the 4 after it to give it 34. That'll be challenging. Haven't really worked out how to do it yet, but I'm very, very excited to hopefully start work on that project. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's Redstone video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please sure to hit that like button, and if you really loved it, then make sure to subscribe. But thanks for watching, guys. This has been Mumbo, and I'm out. I'll see you later. Oh, and by the way, check out the filming channel. Good stuff going on over there.